Today, we're going to talk about a writer who didn't just tell a story, he completely changed the story for an entire continent. Yep, we're talking about the one and only, the incredible Chinua Achebe. Okay, let's just start with a number, and it's a big one. 20 million. Just let that sink in for a second. 20 million. What do you think that could possibly represent? Well, that is the number of copies of a single debut novel that have been sold worldwide. We're talking about Chinua Achebe's masterpiece, Things Fall Apart. And believe me, this was a book that did so much more than just sell. It spoke volumes. And look, this isn't just about the sales numbers, as mind-blowing as they are. This novel has been translated into more than 50 languages. 50! That's what makes it a true global phenomenon. It really cemented its place as an absolute, undisputed classic of world literature. So that's really the big question we're tackling today, isn't it? How did one person with one book manage to completely change the game for world literature? To get to the bottom of that, we've got to go back, way back to the beginning. To really get the impact of his work, you first have to understand the world that made him who he was. So, Chinua Achebe was born way back on November 16, 1930. The place? A small Igbo village called Ogidi in southeastern Nigeria. And that specific time, that specific place, well, it would become the absolute heart of his entire literary universe.
Achebe's childhood was fascinating because he was literally living between two different worlds. On one hand, his dad was a missionary teacher, so he was raised in a very Christian household. But on the other, all around him was the rich, vibrant, traditional Igbo culture. Living at that crossroads, man, that gave him a perspective that nobody else had. And it became the engine for everything he would write. And this unique point of view, it was sharpened by a seriously impressive education. He went to some of the best schools in Nigeria, and get this, he eventually earned a BA from the University of London. That gave him this incredible command of the English language, the very tool he was going to use to tell his people's story to the rest of the world. But here's a cool little tidbit. He didn't just jump straight into writing novels. Nope. His first job was actually as a radio producer for the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. So, you see, he was a storyteller right from the get-go, really learning his craft and connecting with a huge audience long before anyone knew his name. So with that incredible background, that unique perspective, he was finally ready to write the story that he knew deep down the world needed to hear. And this is where the revolution really begins. You have to understand, for centuries, the stories coming out of Africa from colonial writers basically painted it as primitive, like it was a place with no real history. Achebe just completely flipped that script. He didn't just challenge it, he demolished it. He took readers right inside a complex, sophisticated Igbo society. And by doing that, he forced the world to finally see the devastating impact of colonialism from the inside out, from the eyes of the people it actually hurt. And how did he do this? He did it through the story of one unforgettable man, Okonkwo. A leader who was respected, sure, but also deeply flawed and just so human. Okonkwo's personal story, his personal tragedy, becomes this powerful metaphor for the tragedy of his entire culture as its world just collides with this outside force.
But listen, Things Fall Apart, that was just the opening act. Achebe's mission didn't stop with one book, not even close. He was building an entire movement. Just look at this timeline. It's an incredible journey, right? It didn't just stop after that huge success in 1958. In the 60s, he kept going, digging deeper into the Nigerian experience with novels like No Longer at Ease and Arrow of God. And then, decades later, in 2007, his life's work gets this huge recognition, one of the biggest honors in literature, the Man Booker International Prize. And here's the thing you absolutely have to get. His success wasn't just his success. There was a reason he's called the father of modern African literature. It's because his work literally kicked the door wide open. He proved to the world that there was a massive audience for African stories, told by Africans. And in doing that, he paved the way for generations of writers who came after him. So here we are, decades later. Why does Achebe's voice still matter so much? Why does it still hit so hard? Let's take a look at his lasting legacy. I mean, just look at the raw numbers. The influence is absolutely staggering. You've got sales in the tens of millions, translations that cover the entire globe, and awards that are the absolute pinnacle of the literary world. This isn't just some footprint. It's a permanent, indelible mark on our shared global culture.
But it's not just about the books, you know? His legacy goes so much deeper. It's political, it's cultural. He was a powerful voice for African independence. He was a fearless critic of the damage caused by European imperialism. His novels, they were his arguments. And wow, do they still feel as relevant today as they did back then?
And maybe that's the real legacy he leaves behind. Chinua Achebe gave an incredibly powerful voice to a people whose story had been ignored, or worse, told for them by others. His entire life's work leaves us all with a pretty big challenge, a big question to think about. Whose stories are we still not hearing today? Whose voices are out there right now just waiting to be heard?